YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Let's get some peeps on here and I'll be right back. That's the back EMF over there. We got, I'll be right back, but that's a new coil. We'll go over it. Then I got a new coil there. So we got dual coils. And I got them put together, series, and then coming out of one of them for there, for the back EMF. Give me 1 second. I'll walk through it. You guys go. Alrighty, where do I start? Oh. That's unplugged. Let's see how long it's still going to spin on its own. Work those barons pretty good. So let's go over the new features we got here, guys. All right, let's start off over here. So this is coil number 1. The core I have there is a laminated core, and it's the core that comes off the microwave transformer, the MOT. It has like a bunch of these on there that you can pull off. And what I did was, this is a 3/4 copper tubing, that long. And I have the core pushed all the way through, nice and tight, and sticking out one end, flush on the back side. For my coil windings here, I took apart 2 Tesla coils, and I proceeded to address these coil windings like I was rebuilding a Tesla coil. Going on. On this coil here, coil 1, is the prime mover is 16 gauge wire. I wound it first, but I did wind these conical. So if you see how they're fatter on one end and narrower on the other, is because I made one complete winding and back, and then I continued to wind the primary, or the prime mover coil, 16 gauge wire. So it's concentrated in the front here, okay, and coned down. And that was so I have a stronger magnetic field towards the end of this laminated bar, and that's 300 turns. And then I have 22 gauge wire, and I have 1200 turns. And I wound that clockwise so that the North Pole, when this is activated, the North Pole comes out here. Now, the magnet that's in front of it is also a North Pole, so they're repelling each other. So we're making a compression. Remember that. We're making a compression. Very important in Mr. Ed Leedskalnin's wheel over there, and in what we're doing here. The same over here, but the coil, let me see if I could make some adjustments here. I have to take it. Coil over here, as well as conical, but it has 300 turns as well for the prime mover, but it has 1600 turns of 28 gauge wire, and it's made identically the same. Yeah, you got that right, just like the nipple on the back of the television set. So, so it puts a well. What I've learned is when you have a core, like the core we're using, right? When you have a core, the laminations right here. There's about 15 laminations in here. You see those laminations. When you have a core like this and you wind it cylinder-like all the way around, you keep going, keep going, keep going. The concentration of the magnetic field, what's up, Justin? What's up? Will be in the center of the core if you have a core in your coil. And it'll focus there. But you can move that if you do a conical to where you're fat on this side and conical down to the center. And that's what we created with those two coils. And the reason of that is I always wanted to build conical, and it makes sense to have more stronger magnetic field towards the magnets. Now, this is something I wanted to tell you guys, and I'm just going to put this out there so you guys could have conversation with each other. And Ed mentions in magnetic current about he mentions about nobody focuses, or everybody focuses on the positive energy to do work, but they disregard the negative. And here, this is taking the negative, which I don't have it set up right now, but I'd like to use my oscilloscope. And what I want to display to you guys is all the energy here that we're seeing to show up. If my finger was the half of sine wave, we're using all the negative energy. We're not using the positive. The positive that we are using positive. The positive we're using is the prime movers, okay? The negative that we're discarding, but we're recollecting, and we're using that, which to me supersedes how we make motors now because they're not efficient. So basically, with having two negatives facing each other, not only are we compressing, like if we had two south together, not only are we compressing the two fields, but we're not creating a lens effect. And I believe it's the lens effect that gives you the resistance that you don't want, and that's more strain on your motor, especially your generators. There's a lot going on there that's slowing everything down. So when you put a load on it, you put a stronger magnetic field in there because the lens effect shows up even more. So this won't have a lens effect because what we're going to have to do is start doing some experiments to where I guess I got to plug it in. Doing some experiments that we're checking to see how much we have going in, how much we have coming out. So right now you can see a couple things. Let's do this. This is a great experiment for you. I'm going to take this resistor off, so it's light, okay? Over here we're climbing volts. Now this voltmeter is coming off of this coil. This coil's back EMF is coming into a voltage multiplier, so it's doubling the voltage. But we're doing that with the diodes and the two capacitors. It's increasing the voltage in the capacitors. Capacitors here that we have are 50 volt Okay, 470 microfarads, 50 volt. Look at the volts climbing up. So what I've been doing is using the light, which is a 4.5 watt. It takes 12 volts to run it. I'm using it to knock down the voltage. Something happened. I don't know what I hit. Voltage. Capacitor is gone. Where'd the capacitor go? I don't know, guys. My capacitor just disappeared. How'd that happen? Let me grab another. Capacitor's going off on me. Yeah. Got it dropped on the floor. We just took away half that sine wave. That's another thing that amazes me. There it goes. Just start climbing. There it is. Voltage is up there now. Hey, Tommy. Yeah, he did using threes. That's why I went with the prime mover being 300. Then I was going to multiply it in threes. So, but really, the reason I need a lot of back EMF or trigger wire on the bifilar is because you need enough voltage to get the transistor to turn on and off. And that's why I wound these, to get the transistor to activate. We're not going to be using a reed switch too long. But look at the volts. The volts over here is up to 64 volts at DC volts coming out of the voltage multiplier. So oh shit. Wow, did you see that? Wow, you see that? So the two ends just touched on the voltmeter. Got a little spark gap thing going there. That's what I should be doing, putting some spark gap in there so it jumps the gap. Bam, 62 volts going. It's a 50 volt capacitor. Let's go ahead and knock down the knock it down. Cover your eyes, guys. I don't know what just happened, but short now. It's too much volts blowing the damn thing right out. So let's go back to this now. So this is running smooth, and I just have this running off a transistor. On this side over here, the back EMF is going to a analog meter I got. And I got it running off a bridge rectifier all by itself. I don't really have anything holding that side. But this side here is without the voltage multiplier. So we're only pushing out of that full wave bridge rectifier a volt and a half. Over here, look, I got in capacitors here this sucker, how much pressure I got built up, and 63 volts, 64 volts and climbing. So over here, I got this totally set up a different way where I'm multiplying the volts. Over here, we're just showing volts, but this is the start end. And what I want to do is get use the 2N3055 transistor, control it with a potentiometer so I can control the speed of I control the voltage going in, the speed of the wheel, and then I can connect this coil back EMF into this coil's back EMF to multiply this, so this is double pressure of what I'm building right now. Let me see if I can knock down some of that. Let's see if we need to get that voltage down. These things, capacitors, are going to blow. See if I can. Oh, that one's gone, obviously. Well, I'm blowing the lights right out. Too much voltage, and it's probably got a lot of current coming out of that because of the pressure. So the pressure in the capacitor. So, yeah, I don't know what I got to do. Well, we're going to watch these capacitors blow up. They blow up, they blow up. See how far we can push them before they blow up. How about that? Wheels turning beautifully, silent. Don't like using a reed switch, but this is it here. And then this side right here is just recording the back EMF off of that coil, and just using a 12-volt battery. I have to get some I guess batteries for this. And what I want to do is, on the next video we do live, we'll show current that we're driving the motors with, and then we're gonna freaking put current on the output and try to match the current coming out as the current coming in. It's the only thing I can do to really just verify power in, power out, right? It's the current. Voltage is one thing, but voltage doesn't mean you have the current. So the current it takes for this battery to drive them two coils takes good current. And I didn't do the math, but 300 turns, 2 coils. I think I'm at 12 volts. I think I'm at 19 amps is what I'm pulling. I was doing that for these coils. So I may be wrong because these coils are pulling 19 amps on 12 volts, which is great for 16 gauge wire. And it's 300 turns as well. This over here should be pulling, I got to do the math, but I haven't done the math. But regardless, look at the speed. Let's, since we got so much going on there, let's put a house light on it. So that is a lot of blowing those other lights, right? Let's put this regular house light bulb, the fluorescent. Alrighty. 62 volts, staying steady. So that's this being flashed. Let's do this. Let's take this off. And let's throw it over here, because that's DC. Let's throw it against the AC over here. Let's throw it on this sucker. So we're going to put this here. And we're going to tie this into the AC side, not the DC side. Nothing. Yeah, it's flashing. Not as much as that side. So like I said, it really comes down to current. Because you can have voltage all damn day. And without current, you'd be playing with electrostatics, which we're going to bring in here anyway, because electrostatics, I think I figured out a way to turn them into more inductive static plates that we're popping off of this. Positive. So there's some kind of frequency going there that I'm going to have to look into. What's going on, Tyler? So my hand on this is making a difference. Without my hand, you can barely see it. It's doing it. See, this is the thing. I got a hunch, guys. Leave your comments on this. My hunch is this. If we have something turning like this and it's able to create motion, and the power that it takes for that motion to be created, if we can minimize it and then realign it so we're not focusing on the electromagnetic. We're focusing more on the ether. We're focusing more on crystals, compression, because I keep picking up on this, and I don't know why, but this is amazing. I mean, look at this thing. This thing is it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Quiet, too. What's going on, Anthony? It's crazy. We're using negative energy. We're eliminating the lens effect. Sorry about that. Family calls. And I gotta go when family calls. You can see this side staying pretty steady with its voltage. So that's pretty much my tickler or my trigger voltage at a steady 1 volt, which is great. And then over here, I can multiply the voltage by a lot. So I can knock down that voltage with a resistor or a voltage or a voltage voltage regulator. So I can just control the voltage that goes into the transistor, fires the transistor, put a potentiometer on it, and I can control the speed here. Now the speed, we can look for frequencies. When we look for frequencies, why are we messing with frequencies? Well, frequencies can mean we can tap into the grounding pipe, which I was saying that if we're going to create, like Tesla created, a ethereal generator. And that's why this is important to start the process. And you need something that's in motion. And the ethereal generator, I have no clue what that would consist of, other than some of my knowledge, I guess, with Tesla and Steinmetz and Heaviside and Faraday and Edison, Leitworth, Leedskalnin, so forth, so forth. So that's what that load on. These volts you're seeing here is what this load on. I'll take the load off and watch the volts climb. Watch them volts climb. That's a 50 max capacitor. Both of these capacitors. One's getting off the diode one's getting fed off the diode on one side of the sine wave. One's getting fed off the other side of the sine wave. And riddle me this, guys. We're only using half the sine wave. We're using a negative and a negative. We're not using above the positive side of the sine wave. We're in a whole different ball game here. We're way outside the envelope of norm, okay? Way outside the envelope. We're using negative against negative. We're on the below the sine wave chart, and if we use positive against positive, we'd be above the sine wave chart. And if you use both and mix your magnets, then you'd have to have something that's going to be switching and changing. And that's one crazy stuff that I thought with edge wheel is all these coils that I wound on the wheel are positioned and wound according to the pole on the end, okay? North, south, north, south, north, south. What I'm going to do is intermediately on every other one, I'm going to counter wind them with a separate turnings, and I want to be able to make all the magnets north. So between north on those magnets and north on these coils, there'll be no lens effect, and every single one will be pushing the other one away. So this thing will have so much damn torque, it'll be sick. But we're not there yet because there's a lot to be learned here before I bounce back over to the big guy. What's going on, Angel, in the house? This is the Vinny StVincent channel. And that's Vinny in the back right there. Staying steady. Increased up to 63 volts. Be sick how much torque will be on that machine. Disgustingly sick. I wish I knew my RPMs right now. I got to put some gauges up. I'm excited about all this. All right, guys. Well, listen, Tesla used his knowledge on ether, the compression, and how when you create compression like that in the ether, you it shows up in the crystals. If it shows up in crystals, especially a piezo crystal, then it also shows up in the ground everywhere because the ground's loaded with crystals in the caves. Every ore that we have has crystals of some sort where it originated from, near it, or on it, or next to it, or the backside of it. So the compression is where we're going after a lot of these studies here. So I hope you guys enjoy the channel. If you do, tell a friend. I'd like to see this channel increase more. I'm sort of elevated my studies here now in a better direction than I was in the beginning. It's real stagnant for a good 5 years, just me toying with it. But on top of that, I've learned, read, looked, followed, chased a lot of rabbits down a lot of holes. But if I can say anything to all you guys who are learning and who already know a lot of stuff or mid-range stuff and just want to do something different, even if you're electrical engineers or some type of engineers, you know, I'm going to say it in the simplest way I can say it. It's better to love and lost than it is to not loved at all. And to be able to go through the experiments and learning was a way more important than the jackass who said he had free energy and you follow his thing and it was nothing but a hoax. So, peace out, my bro hams. That's my boy Tyler Gardner. Hey, Tyler. So I just planted today. I from seed. I bought 100 of Carolina Reaper seeds, and I just took 24 solo cups that I had laying around, cut the tops off, put 5 holes in the bottom of it, put some beautiful soil in each one, and put 3 seeds in each one, lightly down, and gave them some water and put them out in some good, beautiful Florida sun today. And now I have them in the house. And in about 25 to 30 days, I'll show you guys my little kids that I'm growing, which are my Carolina Reapers. And you're probably asking yourself, what the heck are we doing with Carolina Reapers? Well, Tyler, I think that you need to email me, Vinny StVincent at AOL.com. Hemp is the start of the growing process of all the oils that we're selling. 80 acres is nice. You could probably, out of 80 acres, I think you could probably get, I forget how much oil. I got to do the math on that, but I got some friends who are inspectors out in Vegas, and we have a lot of conversation back on the hemp growers versus the pot growers. And why I was growing the Carolina Reapers is that I did a study back when I started alkaline and water and doing studies on the body with water, and realized that a lot of people that use peppers in their diet have less chance of a heart attack or any clog up or strokes, and that's because the capsaicin in the pepper sort of melted the plaque, and the plaque is what causes all that, and that's why I do it. I put it in my pickles. I make pickles, and I put it in my pickle juice, and I drink that a little bit every day and have some pickles and keep that in my blood. Until next time, you guys. Anthony Electric, I am back in the house. That's 60 volts, guys. Later, Tyler. Got my email. Email me. Vinny's hunting something. I'm getting a nice wind off of this thing. It's like a fan. Bet if I put a little restriction on it, it'll... No, they didn't blow up yet. Must be some dissipation. That's what I was saying. Voltage versus current, you know, if you put a load on that, it'll drop down. And that's where you can see where your currents... There you go. See that sucked up juice, knocked it down. Now we're down in the low 20, 30 range. I can see it blinking. And you can see where your current and your voltage. But remember this, guys. And I've been a guy that's been a great fan of the NSTs. You know, their voltage, their current limited. And what I'm a fan about is though that even though they're limited, I always thought that that the higher the voltage, the lower the current. But that's not always necessarily true because current follows voltage. It goes along with voltage. So if you put more water in the hose, you're going to have more current. Plain and simple. All right, you guys. Yeah. That sucker's moving, hauling right now. Let's get it. See how long it takes to turn off. Hey, Vin! What's up, boo-boo? Good boy. Get him, Vin. Watch him out there. They want to hurt Dad. Got some bad ones. So you can see. Put some. I might have some LEDs to burn up some of that juice in this. It's gone. All right, guys. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments. We'll get into the ethereal part of recepting the energy in. It's the way we're going to get the energy is we're going to be getting into electrostatics, and we're going to get into compression in a way to where we're using a piezo crystal. And that crystal, no matter where it is in the room, that's how Tesla had that Aero car running miles and miles away, is because he was able to bring that into a compression. Somehow, the compression was made by the motor or by the electrical system of the motor, and he was able to use a piezoelectric crystal. And that's where the ethereal energy came in through his coil setup. We'll talk about it later. Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Quick video. You ready, guys? All right. Well, 12-volt battery coming out of the positive of the 12-volt battery, going into the start primary wire on this. This is a bifilar. Primary wire is 16 gauge magnetic wire. Going in there with the positive, out the other end, coming out the other end, and going to this coil. And has the same setup as the primary as a bifilar, and we're going into the start of that one, and out of that one we come back, we hit a reed switch, which is the switching device. We come back out of that, go right to the negative side of the battery. So there's your loop right there. And on this one, I got that one going into a full wave bridge rectifier, going into that digital meter, and it takes 3 volts to fire that meter up, so it's a load itself. And over here comes into a full wave bridge rectifier, and which is down there, and then it comes up, it goes to this meter, and there's the volts there. Now the difference between these two coils is this coil, they both have the primary, or the prime mover is both 300 turns, so that's identically the same, and they're both wound the same, to where they put a north pole coming out at those ends. Okay, the magnets that I have on there are 4 magnets, and they're all north pole heading out, so we're making a compression of 2 magnets together, north pole against north pole, so it's pushing the wheel. There's no pull in here, there's no Lenz law effect happening. This side has 15 volts, that side has 5 volts, and the reason is this side is wound the secondary, or the trigger wire, we'll call it. The wire is 26 gauge, 1600 turns. This one is 22 gauge, 1200 turns. So you can see the difference on the 2 coils, how they're wound. So I'll post a video tonight. I'll do a live broadcast around 7:30 Eastern time. And what we're going to do, did I mention that I couldn't get these to stay on? It was flashing with no numbers. So I decided to smooth out the signal coming in from the coil. Out of the full wave bridge rectifier, I'm going into a capacitor. So it seemed to smooth it out, and I get a pretty constant number. Okay, did the same thing on both sides. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, we know that the pressure is building up inside these, and we know that the volts that we see are here, but they're extremely losing. So we're going to come out of both of those, and we're going to dump them into something and do some experiments tonight. All right, my bro hands. Peace out.
Listen to me. If you hear something in the woods, you tell me. If you hear something in
The students at the school need your help, and we need their money. I'll deal with the business end of things.
Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Alrighty, so we're going to do a live video shortly. Eastern Standard Time, shortly. So stay tuned. This is going to be a great night. Let's look at the stack of batteries. We're charging some batteries. We're using one as a run battery. Got my potentiometer set up, my circuit. We'll go over it. Voltmeters hooked up to the run coil, so I can see how much power is going in the run coil. I'll step back and we'll start it, and I'll bring you up closer and you can hear the pinging going on in that coil. See where's a good place to Now that's with one coil. I just got this thing running. You can see the flashes on my signal light is the heartbeat of what the coil is getting fed into its trigger wire. And that thing is humming. We're literally charging the battery. I didn't even mess with putting voltmeters yet because I was just so excited. I want to let you guys see this. Is beyond cool. And I can turn the potentiometer and get more speed out of it. And I want to hook everything up to voltmeters. We'll do a live broadcast tonight. All right, you guys? Woohoo! NASCAR! Stay tuned. Leave your comments.
The students at the school need your help, and we need their money. I'll deal with the business end of things, and you can do the third.
Heat it up at 300 and leave it in for 35 minutes.
Thanks, Karen.
It's my take on Mexican lasagna.
All right, can you guys see that? So real quick, wheels turning on its own, being triggered off the one coil. And I got charging battery right there hooked up to here. And you can see it charging. Going to push up to 12.88. Shazam. Got a charging device. Now we need to run through it. One thing I liked about the Bedini, that he put it out there, open forum, and he says, learn from it. And that's something I'm going to take advantage of, as well as the development of this, because that right there will have the same principles as this, except for that will be really advanced because of what we learned from this. I'm going to set this coil up. So I just put this coil tapped onto that coil and it stopped working. So obviously it's too much. I had to put these coils aside because I couldn't get the transistor to trigger with those coils. So I had to rethink what was going on. It took me several days to 3 days, a few hours a day, 3-4 hours a day to problem solve this. And so far, it came down to changing the resistor the resistor and changing the coil windings and the coil size. Now I'm going to dig into it deeper. So I tried to put that off of there, it wouldn't work. So I'm going to build another circuit just for this side to have two sides running. And if I could get this coil to fire up off the circuit. So right now I'm getting ready to take that coil, put it in that coil's place, don't change anything, and see if it fires up. If it's not, then definitely the coil that I changed was part of the culprit, but a major part of the culprit, because you just can't wind what you want. That's probably what Vinny learned through the process, that you had to have enough resistance in the wires and the wires thin enough so they can create this effect, which is charging back. Look, which is going at 12.89 now. Battery charging. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Ed was before Bedini. And Ed and Bedini knew about Ed big time. We'll get into it tonight. Thank you, Bob. Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. What I got out there? What's going on, Jason, my world traveler friend? Yeah. Going on, buddy, man. Watching your videos. You're all over the place. I love it. Let's start off with, let's get the wheel turning. I'll first show how it's turning. I'm using this as my drive coil. It's a bifilar. I have it going into this 2N3055 transistor and this potentiometer. And I'm using these two batteries here right now as a run battery. And this battery here is a charge battery. This right here is the charge, is the voltage of the charge battery. So we'll see the voltage climb. Let's go ahead and start off with hooking up the battery. And now I'll turn the wheel. You'll see my little signal light comes on. You can see the wheel spinning crazy fast. And that's the heartbeat of how many times the wheel is being pulsed through that bifilar coil. Now let's step over here. That's the spark gap. These are my capacitors. Right now we are coming out of the spark gap, which is right there. We're feeding the top side. Feeding the top side of that plate there, and the bottom side of that plate goes directly all over here to earth ground. All right, so the bottom side of that spark gap is going to earth ground. We'll do a little test right here. And first of all, this is LED. This is LED. This is my antenna. What's going on, William? LED lit up. Wireless. Now watch this. Because the bottom of this plate, what I'm creating there is a dipole. And by having this plate right here is the coming off the high side of the spark gap. You see the spark gap going? So on the high side of the spark gap, we're going to that top plate. And the bottom side here is not connected to anything. So the bottom side of this plate is ground, okay? Is earth ground. And how is it earth ground? Well, it's earth ground because I got it coming all the way over here and go into this wire. So let's show what happens when you stretch out a dipole. And I'm using earth ground as one plate, and there's the other plate. Now watch this. I'm gonna come over here to this let me get you set up here. Freehand. All right. So we are looking down at a pole that I have shoved in the ground, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and connect to the ground and watch what happens when I grab the wire. So we're expanding the dipole into the ground now. We're not even focusing on aerial above the ground, electromagnetic. We're doing electromagnetic reverse now. We're using ground. So that LED is lit up because one end I'm just touching, which would be the aerial, and the other end here, we're just using earth ground. Now, let's go ahead and disconnect the earth ground. You dial this in a little better. You can see that light. Add a little bit. A little less, a little more resistance. And we're going to disconnect the ground now. We're going to connect it to the bottom. Now the dipole is no longer going to earth ground. So technically this should not work at all. All right. Now, what will work though is if I hold it in my hand. See if I have it hooked up right. Got a capacitor in my hand. Nothing. Spark gap still firing. Wheels still turning. Let's move into another experiment that I was working on, which is going to be the electrostatic side in here. To throw some stuff in there. Plastic. I got the wrong wire hooked up. Hold on. What's up? You guys are still there? Now, we're going to come off the ground side. Look, come off the ground side of the spark gap, and we'll connect that to the bottom. Then we're going to move the capacitor up. Now I should be able to hold this in the air. Not yet, huh? Bite me tonight. Here it is. Look at that. See, it's off. Back on. Put my finger on it. See if I hold this capacitor. Oh. Let's try that side. Oh, I know what's wrong. Watch this. So I can't hold the capacitor, right? I ground it out. I'm going to grab it by the top. Look at that. Light bulb's on. So the wireless is charging the capacitor, and the light bulb, this is all wireless. And if I let go, nothing. There's no charge in the capacitor except for just holding it up in the air. Over here, We're at 12.89, climbing to 12.90. That's right, and that's what we're working on here. Battery charging going up. 12 volts, 0.91 to go into 9.2. Got some good speed. I can adjust the speed with this potentiometer. See the volts climb up on that battery that's charging. Well, it beats the heck out of using a reed switch, and it also beats the heck out of using a relay. On the core here, that's laminate that I shoved inside here. I got 150 feet of wire. It's a bifilar using 26 gauge and 26 gauge and I believe 28 gauge. 150 feet each evenly. And I'm using the laminate cores, little laminates right there. I'm shoving them in there, so they're making it perfect. I see there's a lot of ways to perfect this by knowing how to build your coils and what resistance to use based on what windings you use. This is going to be interesting, diving into the coils per se. Like this coil here will not work off the 2N3055. I can get it to partially work, but there's a problem with the size of the wire and the windings. So I will dig in deeper into like the Benini part of this and to get it more efficient. So the lessons to be learned in regards to like creating a electro dragon, I call it, electromagnetic field. Pretty creative. I like the Figuerella pattern because you're able to, with that pattern from the machine I made, you're able to not have anything moving, and you're using an electromagnetic field of that moving field, but the field's technically not moving because it's lined up with a bunch of coils, and it's like an electro dragon, I call it. Anybody know about it out there? If you look at some of my past videos, you'll see I got into it for a while, and for some reason it keeps rearing its ass back up to the ground surface, and there's something more important about it that I need to go back into it, as well as the Bedini setup. I don't see well, I would say this. Using the coil, there's only one coil moving this wheel. Using a coil and capturing part of the energy back, I would say here, once I dig in a little bit deeper, that this setup here, the way it sits right now with that coil winding, I'm probably losing 30% of the energy. So out of 100, I'm using half of it for the prime mover, right? And then I'm capturing back 70% of the half. So I'm losing 30% plus 23% for just the coil itself. Unless I use Leedskalnin style and wrap this with foil around the outside to capture. How to capture and mitigate the loss that's in that coil. That's the driver coil. So it loses no energy. So I think taking Bedini's setup and adding Leedskalnin to it for sure capturing and making it more efficient than Bedini was capable of making it efficient. That's a neon light right there for my backup so the circuitry don't burn up. That's my pulse signal that's telling me that it's the transistor between the collector and the emitter is firing. You see the volts climbing on the charging battery. This opens up a lot of doors, guys, because if you look at the big guy over here, I started using the wrong windings. I'm glad I stopped dead in my tracks. God works in mysterious ways. And Leedskalnin's on my shoulder saying, stop, wait a minute. Learn about this. And to me, Ed was doing this in a way because if you look at his, let me grab a hold of something. If you look at his picture of himself holding the wheel, one thing you'll notice that he has a piece of white backer board covering that whole gap between the two stone walls, and that gap for sure is about, I say 6 to 8 inches wide, maybe even further. And he's got the bottles, all his bottles that he has, where they have a little, like a reed switch. Basically, he had 2 or 3 bottles hanging. The bottoms were broken out. They had contacts, like a 4-way contact, where it was electromagnetic. He used iron wire, and it would, I guess he did, it would flip on and off. So he was using that as a reed switch in this setup. And what you guys don't see here, that there's 2 rings here. You got the flange ring on the pipe, and then behind that is just another ring. So whatever he has right here, he has an identical one right behind it that you don't see. This thing is screaming, guys. I'm only using one coil. Now over here with the high voltage you're seeing, I'm using a flyback. Okay. I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm using a flyback and I'm using a driver to the flyback. I'm using 12 volts out of the battery into the driver. That battery is also rectified out of that, and that's going and charging the battery as the battery's being used. Coming out of the high voltage side of that flyback to one side of that Russian spark gap there, and the other side is coming out of the ground. But instead of coming off the ground, I came off the one wire that comes off the knobs on the side so I can make adjustments, which I never seen anybody ever do, because that's a high voltage transformer for a TV. So here is why you have a dipole here, and that's how we're getting the wireless, by just snapping the spark gap. What's going on, Marker in the house? Let's go ahead and disconnect the spark gap. And let's go right to the plates here and see what we get. Alright, so we'll come out. Oh shit. Some damn juice in there. Alright. Look how everything just stood up. Here goes like levitation, guys, with your electrostatics. Now, look at the stuff inside there moving around and watch what happens. Now, the top's not hooked up to anything. I don't think, is it? Yeah, I guess it is. The top's got the positive. Pretty sure. Yeah, the top's the positive and the bottom's the negative. So watch the stuff inside start moving. Let me grab some more of that sawdust. Electrostatics is the way Ed Leedskalnin used to get into his rocks, how he penetrated the rocks. That's electrostatics, guys. That was nice, guys. See what that aluminum did? So let me explain something here really good. So if you get aluminum in between this call it high temperature, I guess, right? High pressure. It had a lot of just good bite about it right now. That was pretty interesting. Haven't had a good shock in a while. May have burned the light bulb out. Charging volts going up to 12.97 and 12.98, so we're getting some charge going in. Yeah, man, that was a good one. That was a nice one. Let's go back to the spark gap. Try to torch that light bulb. There we go. Got a red one this time. So, one thing I want to show you, let's go back to this real quick. So, on this right here, now, I got my little LED on, and you can see it's red, right? That's wireless. Now, I don't have the bottom plate on, so we're just using a half a wave right here. So, the right now, coming out of the flyback through the high voltage, going right here, I got the spark gap, I got the negative and the positive on the spark gap, and then coming off the spark gap, I'm just firing up this top plate. So we're using a half a wave, send it out in the air. So basically you can see it works, but it's very, very That's bright right now. So it's, you see it's on. Now I'm gonna go ahead and connect that ground again. I don't have any more wire for the ground, so I guess I can't do that experiment. But I wanted to send it back into the ground because I think it's pretty amazing that when you make the dipole from up here and say 3 feet to the ground, that a ground rod becomes activated. Like right now, this rod that's right there is not going to light this bulb up because I'm not touching the ground. Oh shit, there it is, look. What the heck? Look at that. I'm not even connected to ground right now. Doing it on its own. That's some good stuff there, guys. So it won't light up. It won't light up just like this right here. But let me show you something now. If I grab a aluminum plate like so, I add that like an antenna, and as long as I don't touch it, let's see where the antenna lights up the bulb. You can see the bulb's real lit right now. Pretty bright. Let me turn down some lightage. We'll focus on the LED there. I think I'm going to try a safer route. So by using this antenna, this aluminum as an antenna, we're wirelessly making energy and we're receiving it. Pretty amazing. Let's see it's the heartbeat of the coil being hit. Look, we're getting ready to go to 13 volts. Oh no. Yeah, maybe it is interfering with the Wi-Fi. Why? You guys have crappy reception? A little worse than before, huh? All right, let's try this. Let's touch the wheel over here and see if we can get the light to light up. Oh, hell. Look at that. Ed's wheel ain't connected to crap. It's lighting the LED because of the signal. Oh, hell. Look how bright that is. So that's just the outside rim there. Let's go to the damn wheel itself. Oh, heck. Look at that. It's amazing, that electromagnetic signal. So the dipole is there, remember that. So if you understand anything about a dipole, the dipole is reacting between both of that. So it's stretching it out, and then it has a collapse, and then it goes boof, 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 and that sends out shock waves into the air. Very fascinating, I tell you. Very fascinating. That's it. Ride the wave. Ride the Schumann resonance. Going up to 13 volts on the battery, guys. Look at that. Recapturing. Recapturing. I just realized I had to charge my battery. On my cell phone. How ironic. Isn't that ironic? Don't you think? So let's see from over there. We already know edge wheel's not connected to anything. It's not even remotely anything going on. So how's that even working? That's pretty far away. Just right here to there. I mean, it's got a good 3 feet. It's a good a good freaking distance. I'll tell you what you guys should use out there. If you try this at home, you can't get the LED to light up like I'm doing because you have to use a germanium diode. That germanium diode has to be facing a certain way. And germanium diodes are a crystal, and they're on the periodic table. And they also pressurize with ether. And what I mean by that is that a piezo crystal, piezoelectric, is how our muscles work. And every time you move the muscle, you'll have a contraction which will release electrons into your system of your body. So it's good to move around. That's why they say a body in motion stays in motion. And the more in motion you are, the more electrons you're releasing in your muscles because they're piezoelectric. So that's their crystal lattice about them in your muscles, the layers. So the germanium is a superconductor, semiconductor, and that germanium right there picks up really good. I can probably, with my Tesla coil, walk away with a little piece of aluminum, probably 60, 70 feet away. So it picks up that electromagnetic wave, but it's also, what it's doing is like a piezo electric or piezo crystal. It's reacting off the pressure of the ether. So that pressure of the ether is what's going on right now from this dipole is pressurizing the ether in its shock waves. And in the shock waves of this germanium, you're seeing the effect. So let's put this capacitor right there. So we know it's in the range. If we're picking up electric over there from edge wheel, we should be able to pick up something if this is just sitting here, because it's got a casing on the outside. I'm pretty sure that's damn aluminum casing. So let's see if anything from there. Nope. Anything from there? Nope. Nada. Nothing. Let's flip it, because maybe the poles have to be different on. Nope. One thing I want to tell you guys is, if you're ever having a tough time with your experiment, be persistent. To get where I'm at right now, I gotta be persistent. I'm working hard on this for 3 straight days. And for 3 straight days, I couldn't get it working. Frustrating. I can't even tell you how freaking frustrating. Where I'm at working, I'm just thinking about it. What did I do wrong? What ain't working? Why ain't it working? Anyway, holy cannoli. Just being persistent gets the job done. Thank you, Marker. I appreciate that. It's not easy to even some of the videos these guys make. Like I'll put my circuit up here so you guys can build your own. But I'll also show you again where all the connections go, because it's really hard to follow some of these peeps. I don't know what the heck. But if you guys, anybody interested in learning how I set this up, I'd be happy to draw out a circuit, either post a video or send it to you for email. You know my email, Vinny StVincent at AOL.com. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. I'm your guy. Look at the battery right now is up to 13 volts and climbing. Is that amazing? So the power, the more power I put in that, the more power goes into the battery, by the way. Then over here, you just have happy-go-lucky Mr. Spark Gap. That wheel's just turning crazy. And we're charging battery over here. I can make that wheel go faster. That'd be nice if I can get a fluorescent bulb light. Let's see if I can. It's broken. Guys would even look. I don't think any of these neons are shot. Oh, you know what neon I do have? These I just bought from the circuitry. Got one of these little neons that I bought for the circuitry. And let's go ahead and hook up. You see, that's not even on, right? So nothing's going on. Let's hook up the germanium. So we'll hook up this germanium to one of those little guys. I'm not sure if it's even going to work, but it's an AC light. Got a resistor on it. gonna need some type of wire. Sure, it's gonna act just like the. No. Nope, nothing. That ain't like. I thought that would. Now I got it. So come over here. I got this light bulb. Look at that hissing coming out of that. Look at how much pressure's in that sucker. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! A little snappy. That is a flyback with a driver running it. Now it's a spark gap. Really? All right, so we're going to connect the bottom of this plate to the other end of the spark gap. So now we're not flaming over here when I'm touching them because we're coming up the spark gap. Watch. Let's get you down. Watch the material. start to move down bottom that I put in there. See it now? I hook it up. See it all move out of there. Look at that. Florida jumping dust. That's a good one. I like that. It's sawdust, pieces of plastic, some organic material. Yeah, that's what that is. ZVS driver going in the flyback. Let's see where our charging went to. 1302, huh? Get some light over here. I'll tell you, it beats the heck out of the reed switch. It ain't easy to get a coil firing off a damn transistor, I'll tell you. Jesus, it's hard. Even if you're following the circuit diagram. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. This just opens up the doors for Ed Leedskalnin's wheel over there for me. He sure did, Tommy. He knows how to rope that dragon. Him and Figuarella. That patent Figuarella is so interesting. So interesting on that Figuarella patent. Ed said he has, in magnetic current, Ed says that he has also a generator, he says, right? A magnetic current. I have a generator that doesn't use magnets. Do I need to find that? In his magnetic current, he says, I also have a generator that doesn't use magnets. Let me see if I can find that sucker. And he says it doesn't make a lot of current. So what he says right here in regards to current, he says what magnetic current is. He says magnetic having to do with a magnet or magnetism. Current passing from one to another. Sometimes that flows as a stream. Now we'll tell you what a magnetic current is. Magnetic current is the same as electric current. Current is the wrong expression. Really, it is not one current. There are two currents. One current is composed of North Pole individual magnets and concentrated streams, and others is composed of South Pole individual magnets and concentrated streams. They are running one stream against the other in swirling screw-like fashion with high speed. One current alone, if it be North Pole current or South Pole current, cannot run alone. To run one current, you have to run against the other. Now, when he says he has this generator that doesn't make a lot of currents, he must be talking about it doesn't have a strong field about itself, because he's not using magnets to create it. So what is he talking about? If he's not creating, he has a transformer. Remember, he has 10 machines, right? Let me get to that section. I'm going to find it, and we're going to show that Ed was making electricity without motion as well. At least he was. Well, here is when he gets into his patent. He says, now you and the field magnet are a generator. Suppose you had a wheel of many coils around the wheel turning. Then you would be making all kinds of light. Do not make the machine. I already have an application for patent in the patent office. I made 10 different machines to make magnetic currents, but I found the combination between field magnets and coils the most efficient. So, 10 machines. Where's the section that he has one that has I'm trying to find that. $13.02. We're putting a lot of damn pressure in that battery, aren't we, guys? That's 13 volts in that battery. You need a lot more pressure than 13 volts. And 13 volts, that means that sucker 13.6, I think. 13.3 maybe. 13.3 is a fully charged battery. So we're way up there. A lot of pressure in that battery. We're overcoming that pressure by this back EMF. So right here he says, he says right here, you made magnetic currents in 3 different ways, but the principle will all be made exactly in the same way. Magnetic currents are made by concentrating, then dividing, then shifting the existing North and South Pole individual magnets from one place to another. Now we'll illustrate how my best machine is doing it. And I believe it's that one right there is doing it. I will only use one coil and one U-shaped permanent magnet without using the windings that the machine uses to increase the permanent magnetic strength. So right there, we're on the right track with Ed's wheel on having wire around the permanent magnets. I'm still looking for that section. Yeah. I don't see it because I'm rushing through the book. But he does. I'm gonna find that though for you guys. Because what is he actually talking about? If he's able to make it without a magnet, so that means he's picking up ambient air. That means he's figured out how to tap the ground some way, or the electromagnetic dragon without turning the wheel. Battery charger going up to 13.03. Hey Eli, accelerating particles. Yeah, sort of like the flyback. We're accelerating the north and south particles here in the dipole, and we're pushing them out into the ether. And then you can see how the germanium dioid recaptured. I would say that it responds off the ethereal pressure that acceleration is causing, or by that or the why you found it, page 17, second paragraph. Oh boy, Tommy, let's see what the hell he's talking about. Page 17, second paragraph. Oh yeah, you're right, Tommy, about why they can move so. Now I don't even have to read it. I know that in my head. Why they have to move, because they're flopping back and forth, and in between every stroke, they're picking up ethereal pressure, and it's putting magnets back into the wire. Oh yeah, good job, good job. Well, there's your power lines that are electro dragon itself because of the AC. AC is different though than snapping a DC back. That rate of change. Could be. Climbing up to 13.04. So, all right, guys. Well, I think 70 minutes is a long time for a video. I like AC through the PMH. AC through the PMH has Eli. AC through the PMH, because it's not DC and it's AC, doesn't really present a strong magnetic field. So that rate of change in the AC is really hard if you were looking like, say, if you were trying to turn the wheel with the magnets, with the AC, you'd have to be able to control the frequency of that AC, I guess. You'd have to slow that shit down, probably to about 30 hertz. AC 30 hertz, you'd be fine. Depends how you wind your coils, too. All right, guys. Leave your comments. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. We'll progress real quick with this. Real quick. I just got this running just about 2 hours ago. And I threw together just some stuff here. So I can't wait to push this one. This is phenomenal. So right here I can control the speed of the wheel. Now what I'll do is I'll turn the potentiometer and I'll make that light go down. Now, I can hear this coil thumping. Can you? Can you guys hear that thumping? I don't know if you can hear that thumping. Let me reach over here and see. Do you hear a thumping? Alright. Now watch. Now listen to that thumping. I'm going to move the potentiometer. It's changing the resistance in the circuit, in the trigger wire. It went away. It's not thumping right now. Wheel's slowing down. I'm going to raise it up. There's the thumping again. That is so freaking cool that I can control the speed with the potentiometer on the wheel. And I think the slower you go, I don't know at what point can it not push any more pressure into that battery. At what point? I mean, we're at 13.03. That's a lot of damn. That's a lot of back pressure that battery is pushing. Now, with that coil like that, smacking, and we're getting the heartbeat with that light right there, tapping into the ground is going to be pretty easy, especially to tap it into the Schumann resonance. Because the Schumann resonance, 7.8, between 7.8 up to 30 to 40 hertz. And recently, the Schumann resonance was screaming high, which was in the 40 plus hertz. And that was the changing time between the the winter and I think spring equinox. So there was some kind of electromagnetic thing going on during that time that made the Schumann resonance high. So that means it was more of a pretty much, watch my finger, so it goes just like a sine wave. It goes like that, but it's traveling not only horizontally across the surface of our planet, but because the planet's round, it's also going, like if the planet was inside here, here would be one plate, here would be the other plate, and that plate has a mirror image. So it would be high side, positive or negative. It's going to have a plate in the middle of it. So it's doing this to that plate. That's always causing a positive, negative, and then a positive, negative. And that's how that whole electromagnetic thing happens with the planet. So that Schumann resonance inside the two plates on the outside of the stratosphere up here, stratosphere here, which is your two positives, and then you would have your negative at the surface on both sides. So there goes, my top finger is the stratosphere, my thumb is the surface of the earth. Then you have the whole surface of the earth, and then you have the bottom again, and it starts over again. So think about the layout. South, north, and then there's a balance in the middle of the earth to where there's a neutral area, because that's where the stuff's being made from, the molten center, hollow center, molten outside the hollow center. It would have a pole like a neutral, then it would start back over. That's how you tap in. Yep, exactly, Tommy. So that's what Ed says when the the neutral is the equator. But you think about the layout I just said, because once you see that, you can see how there's a Schumann resonance on the let's just say that my voltmeter's the rock, planet Earth, right? And then you got your atmosphere, and then your atmosphere on four sides. This is good. This is gonna be a good explanation. So basically, you're gonna have your outer stratosphere, down bottom your outer stratosphere, and you're going to have positive charges on two tops. So there's your positive up here, positive down bottom. Then you're going to have the bottom of where the ground starts, you're going to have your negative. There's your center right there, you're going to have your neutral. Then when the bubbles open up, then they slow down and cool down, basically. They pick their poles, get caught up, and then there's a heavy presence, like a static, that there's energy trapped between the top plate and the surface plate. Okay, bottom side as well. There's a static trapped environment. This is cool stuff. You can, if the Schumann resonance is firing sun rays across the top, sun rays across the bottom, electromagnetic disk is what we are, so we're blocking those sun rays. Most of them are shooting around us, and that's where we get our tail end. So when the earth turns around, you have, even no matter where you are on the earth, you're always going to be at the tail end when it's dark. When it's dark in your area, you're at the tail end. So basically, you're having a stream run this way. Here's the earth, or here's the sun. Here's the earth. The sun's moving 70,000 kilometers per second, and it's going this way. This guy, Earth, here, and the other planets all lined up are attached to that electromagnetically and being pulled along with it. and they're not really like traveling around the damn sun perfectly. They're traveling, and they're being dragged, and wherever they're sitting, they're spinning. They all still are going around this earth or the sun because they're close in proximity, but they're stretched out as how we see it. It's pretty cool stuff because stick that's able to travel upstream. Well, I'll tell you one thing fascinating you talk about upstream is that the St. Johns River travels from the top of Florida all the way down to almost Indian River, which is 100 and something miles long, 200 miles, 150 miles long lake or river, St. Johns River. It flows up north. It flows north. Look at the bolts there. Still going up. Back to what I was saying is, so with that set up there, that we're being dragged along from the sun, everything is sitting here spinning. They're close to proximity, but they kind of create and make a horn, like a spiral. That's how Mother Nature's doing it. That's how we see this electricity moving one against another. That's how Ed describes it, that one goes against the other, but it moves together because of how the sun, the earth, the other planets they're not traveling. If the sun is moving that direction and moving 70,000 kilometers, how is this frickin' planet going around the sun like this? It's never going around the front of the sun. It's no way. There's no way that can go in front of the vector field of travel of this thing moving fast. So it's got to stay dragged behind. It's still spinning, which appears that it's still going around the sun, but it's dragged behind because this thing is pulling everything. You see that, how electric runs. It runs the same way as Mother Nature. Fascinating things. So the Schumann resonance pinging anywhere between 7.8 hertz to 40 hertz plus. To know what it is at a present time, there's got to be a way through resistance, like a potentiometer, like this setup here, to where you can tune this to be the coil, which is inside the pipe, which is connected down to the ground, which is like a satchable reactor. And what we were trying to do is create that pipe to be something that's caught in between the wave of the Schumann wave. So if that pipe itself is pinging in a vertical way, the Schumann wave is going up and down, like a sine wave. So you're going to have your lows and your highs, your lows and your highs. And your low is at the center of the earth, not the other side of the earth, the bottom, but at the center. So you're getting to the center, which would be your hump down bottom. The ground surface is your middle. So you got 4 poles you're dealing with. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, you got 4 poles. Tap into that. When you tap into that, you're gonna get the expansion. You're gonna get the contractions, and once you have that, you have a ethereal differential, I would call it. And at that point, you should be able to tap into it. Life itself, AKA, I love it. All right, you guys, you have a great night. Peace out. Never made an 84-minute video before, but this wheel's still turning. It's crazy. I'm in love with this circuit. The Deanie's going to be proud what I do to this sucker. All right, guys. That's going to be awesome because the techniques of this is going to be applied there. All right, Tommy, everybody, have a great night. Happy Friday. Rolling into Memorial Day weekend over here at the other side of the pond for my good gents over there in Europe. On the other side of the pond, over here in America, we got Memorial Day weekend celebration all the way through Monday. Back to work on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and disconnect. Let's see this thing actually slow down. Man, I like that. Yeah, it's time to get out there. I guess just enjoy life, guys. It's goes by fast. So over here we're at 13.01. This is interesting too. So now this is without the charge going into the battery. This will be the battery charge. Let's see what it drops to. Wow, we were at 13.5. Look at that wheel. So remember, that's the North Pole where I'm pushing out of that coil. And that's the North Pole side of the magnets. Look how the magnet's staying away. Good balance. So we got 13 volts. Wow. That's awesome, charging that battery. And you can charge multiple batteries. Let me plug this on one more time. All right, so we're plugged in again, and let's just see what that volts goes up to. Let's get the wheel turning. This is back EMF on top of the 13, right? This is 13.1, 13.2, 13.3. We're getting back up real quick. You can see the signal right there. That's the signal it ain't the signal generator, but it's just telling me that coil right there, the prime mover and the back EMF, which is getting put into that charging battery, is climbing back up. So it only dropped to 13 volts, so it maintains. So it looks like it has to be what are these, intense? So it has to be half of it above the pressure of the battery. So if the battery's at 13 volts, there's a certain pressure of 13 volts provides into that battery. And in order to get it to charge any more, you'd have to up the voltage or up the pressure of your charging device for it to overcome the 13 volts of pressure. And you can see, look, we're back up to 13.5 on that. Interesting stuff. So like I said, this is learning time with the Bedini real quick, just to go ahead and well, yeah, I mean, basically, a system like this, say if you wanted to charge a boatload of batteries. I got a boatload. I got all these batteries I got for free. And they all need to be charged. So I'm going to go ahead, probably tomorrow after work, still got to work tomorrow, go ahead and I'll start taking my batteries. The battery that's running the wheel, obviously the more power you put in it, the more it charges. So I'll find a balance there of what I'll need for how much voltage in and what the battery charging capabilities are. I'll just go with that for a while. I mean, just to kind of see what what can be produced, but I'm not sticking with just one coil. That should happen tonight. So I'll have this sucker, 2 as a driver, 2 back EMF. So that means there'll be another battery system on this side that I would be charging as well as that side, because I have enough of these batteries. And then we'll start putting meters everywhere, and we'll start to fine tune it to see if we can use less power to drive it, and see if we could see what we're getting out. I guess amperage for amperage. I don't know what to do from there, because all we're doing is we're charging stuff. But if we're charging and we're charging through a spike, you're not providing a current with the spike. So I get this whole thing with why this couldn't really be used for operation of running anything. But there's more to it that's missing, and I think I can get to the bottom of it. Are you? Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Happy Memorial Day for the folks over in US of A, and for the people on the other side of the pond. Happy day. So, thanks for giving us our freedom across the pond. So, I had to fight for it, but we got it. So, tonight we're going to do live streaming, and we're going to compare some different types of motors. Obviously, the Bendini motor. We're going to go over like the difference between this coil setup with a core in there and this one as well. And we're going to build a Tesla coil, and we're going to go over this one as well, because this one won't have a core in it. So we'll fire it up. We'll put a primary underneath it. We'll fire it up, and we'll talk about the different effects between the non-core, air core we'll call it, as well as a core. And it'll be pretty interesting vid tonight. So, and I'm also going to include where you can call in and we can have some conversation versus just texting instant messages. So tonight won't be the call-in, I don't think, but it will be set up so you can call in. All right, you guys. Peace out. Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Look into the magic wheel. What's going on, Marker? Marker in the house. Why, thank you. Hey guys, we got a good thing going on tonight. Get a few more peeps on and we'll fire up some stuff, all right? Cheers, y'all. That's right. Hello to everybody. So I think on Wednesday, I'm going to make my first live broadcast by using another phone to where people can call in and we can do 3 ways. What I like about that idea is that, hey, Virgil, what we could do is we could have topics. Let me turn that fan down over there. It's all. Alrighty, so we're gonna start everybody off tonight with going on this side of the table. This side. Look at my minion over there sleeping. I'm studying the periodic table. He's a little burnt out. Let's go right about here. Let's take a walk through what I'm about to fire up, and then at least everybody that watches the video down the road will have an idea of what's happening. So, right here, I refurbished my beer bottles, and that's a saltwater bath with oil on top, probably about that much oil. Each bottle has almost filled up to where the neck starts, and then it's all oil. And got salt water in each bottle, salt water surrounding, and then you got oil in the bottle and also on the top there to keep that 15,000 volts NST 60 milliamp. Over here I put together a coil. This is the primary. Right now we're set at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns out using 20, I think 4 gauge wire. Peace out, my brohams. Got and this time around I started to just elevate the secondary from the primary, and I got a lot more out of it. So right now we'll start off. Here's my spark gap, little custom spark gap I made. Got some airflow coming in from my air blower there, and these are brass balls, by the way. I got brass balls. We'll get into it. What I wanted to talk to you guys was the topic for tonight is very interesting because this here is a air core. Put my glasses on. Thanks for my ball comment, guys. So this is an air core, we call it. There's no core in this coil, and Tesla is showing us here that you can have an electromagnetic wave, and the electromagnetic wave is going to create a pulse through the secondary, like ringing a bell, and that pulse will create a harmonic, which will exponentially build on top of each other. So when we get into the Tesla coil, firing it up down the road here tonight, but firing it up, when you see sparks come out, and they come out, pretty far, it's because I'm pulling apart the gap here. 2, I'll show you guys when we go to fire it up that I won't have air on, and how the air sort of acts in between this buffer here of the 2 balls, my brass balls. There'll be air. That air gets ionized, and when that ionization of air gets in between, it sort of dampens the spring. The almost tries to make a connection that's solid. But because of the air, it sort of pushes it out. And you'll see it'll be hard to see, but you'll see a bright, like the sun bright, right? And what it's doing is it's stretching out. And when it stretches out here, the effect shows up here. Now, I don't even have this on yet. So what you're getting a lag, if you're getting anything, guys, it might be from the magnets from this beast that might be giving the lag. Yeah, yeah, and the 4 kids that I have. So let's get this minion back to work. So for right now, the quick experiment I want to show you. Well, hold on with the experiment. So you have your coil with air core. Over here, you have your coil. It happens to be a bifilar, which doesn't really matter right now. Then you have an iron core. Now, the fact that the iron core is laminated or solid, what I'm talking about right now doesn't matter because it's still a saturated material, which iron is like the most saturated material that that's out there. Well, I'm sure there's others that are more that my minion's learning on the periodic table here. But as far as we use iron, it's the best saturating material that you can have, which causes an induction. So when this magnet, even though it's North Pole, comes up to this magnet, right? It comes up to it, or not the magnet, it comes up to the core. And when it's approaching the core, there's an induction. And all of a sudden, there's electrons we start saturating the core. And then we come up to it, there's a total saturation where nothing's moving. And then as we pull away, the poles reverse and they start snapping. And as soon as you get to a point, it'll snap away free. And something that reminds me of that I wanted to mention to you guys is when you watch the new shuttles, or not the shuttles, but the new rockets going up in the air, they get to a certain elevation. And this is cool as shit, guys. They get to a certain elevation where there's a high pressured static you would call it geez, why did I get blank for a second? It is let me hear, brain fart here. It is dynamic. We're going to go with dynamic. And why it's dynamic is because there's motion involved. And when you have motion in a dynamic, the rocket that's shooting from the ground up, it has its highest pressurized dynamic. I forget what it's called. God, I'm getting blank. But it all of a sudden, that's when the magnet is approaching the core there. And then all of a sudden, it balances out, reverses its poles, and now this would represent the rocket taking off from the ground, and it's got a strong force. And as it builds up and builds up, at some point there's going to be a snapback. That event right there on that snapback creates a negative pressure. So when that magnet gets up to a certain point, or that rocket gets up to a dynamic pressure of its maximum, it also releases itself. Now it's out of our atmosphere, has no magnetic, our atmosphere has no magnetic, our planet has no magnetic control over that rocket. Magnets have the same thing, and this is something that's very interesting that I wanted to point out to you guys, is that when each magnet is going by each one of these, we're going to take, it just sounds crazy, I'm sorry guys, but iron cores, solid, is not what I want. I just realized this, that the ferrite, and what I'm trying to do here, the ferrite is the way to go. You see that thing moving on its own? So what's happening in that wire right now, it's going positive, negative, positive, negative. It's flipping its poles because it's at the other end of the dynamic. There's a high pressure dynamic where it's at maximum pressure. Maximum pressure is where it's ready to break its field. No longer will that magnet have any control over that iron core, and it breaks its field. And then that's a maximum pressure. But now it's at zero pressure. Even though that this induced this is running into the iron core, running around, and it's at its max of how many I hate to say the word, it's killing me to say the word. How many electrons are induced into this iron core that's laminated, which will probably concentrate more electrons in there, so it's a bigger punch. That's why laminate versus solid core is a stronger magnetic concentration. So that's why I'm going to get rid of these and make laminates that are the same size. But the second part to that is how much, when you get into building your Bedinis or a wheel of substance like Ed's wheel here, the main important thing you guys need to look into. Thank you, RPV Angel. I'll look at Walter Russell. In fact, I'll turn around in a second and show you a couple books I got on. I appreciate that. So the induction here is very important in the start of building your coil. The coil is very important on how much induction you're going to put into this coil to backfeed into this magnet. So for instance, these are magnets are Alicano magnets, and they are ceramic, right? So they're very somewhat weak, but still strong enough to do what I'm doing, right? And I ordered some 1-inch square cubes of neodymium. But what I realized is I have to, just like the rocket ship that just plastered off the ground, I have to be able to overcome the high dynamic pressure. And that high dynamic pressure is the same thing as the induction in the iron to the magnet. So when this magnet right now is stuck here, has a dynamic pressure where it keeps it there. But if I put more force into it, I could break it free. Why could I break it free? Because I added more energy to the system. So when you design your coils, you have to be thinking about what size magnet you're using. And then maybe you could take this iron core and you can back it up a little bit. Once you back it up a little bit, there's a couple things that are going to happen, especially when things become dynamic. And they become dynamic, some of the lens law and some of the things just don't come into play because they're overcome by motion. And I got to put this fan back on because I'm sweating like a fiend. Hope you guys had a great Memorial Day weekend. If you're on this side of the pond, if you're on the other side, hopefully you enjoy that. We're over here and we're celebrating our veterans and people who helped us keep this place and live how do we live. So shout out to the veterans. Happy Memorial Day. Shout out to the Americans and shout out to the people around the world. Hopefully we can get rid of this carbon emission and maybe not supersede what the planet's capable of handling or managing. Back to the dynamics. So you can see how this comes into play. So same thing here. Look at all this iron I got. You know what? Iron is good, but it works against you too. This is a lot of iron. A lot of iron. This is crazy amount of iron. So I got to rethink this. This is all mathematical. This is about induction, the coil size that can overcome the induction. And then once you go from there, you can do the bifilar, trifilar, quadfilar, cinco, ocho filar, whatever you want to do, you can pull more out of it. But just remember this, so far all I ever see, I'm not fooling anybody, is the power in, power out. So if I were to wrap five wires on here and only one going in, that means, and four coming out, that means four coming in means four going out. Because the four coming out don't mean you're only putting one in. It means more currents coming through the one and feeding the four. So all I'm saying is we're going to try to explore this. We're going to take it to the limits. Well, one thing that I did realize is that magnetism is particles. So I'm going to say no more am I going to use the word electrons. They are particles. So the particles in this magnet have a magnetic field, which is full of particles which are coming out of the realm of the magnet, right? So those particles, when they come approaching the iron saturation right there, which that is iron and it's made to do that, will take those particles and become part of that closed loop circuit. Now that closed loop circuit right there is what we're looking at. Well, the idea of water with particles, that's why we have motion. I mean, that's why water moves, and it's got to move to not be stagnant and get mildew on it or algae on it, I should say. Not mildew, algae. Ed talks about that in magnetic current, about his still ponds versus his moving ponds. Well, the physical thing I would say, Marker, is that you're moving something, you're creating motion, and we happen to have a magnet, and we're putting in motion. And Vinny come over here, he's got to go. I'm about ready to fire this sucker up. Yeah, and we do have magnets. I like that, Dave, that have a different PSI. Like the neodymiums, I got the 52 1-inch cubes coming in. Woof! And they are different. So you have different pressures, different. So a neodymium 52 is 10 times the strength of aluminum magnet. So think about that, 10 times the concentration. So if you were to take, without thinking this through, you would put a neodymium here, still have the iron core here, you'd have such a strong, 10 times the field here, such a strong induction that you would, saturation as well in the iron, that you would have to be able to break that, because you're creating, what you're doing is creating a resistance or some stress in the system. So what would you do to overcome that? You would either back this up or go down in size of the iron core. But because this is a push me, it's a push me, pull me, don't get me wrong, but it's push me, meaning the north is coming out here, the north is there. So it's not on the attraction, so it is attraction, it's pull me, so the attraction's coming down, and then it's charging the core, and then as it goes just by, the trigger kicks on, because now this is breaking its dynamic energy right there, and then what happens is the transistor kicks on, and then all of a sudden when that kicks on, it pushes the magnet away. Then it starts it over again, to where that trigger is fired by, this is the saturation, this is the part where the trigger kicks on it's that part, that dynamic part, to where it's there's a separation. That separation is creating the current that goes into the transistor, therefore turns on the transistor as a switch. But this transistor is not actually just a switch. It's a what I call it, a linear switch, which is linear, meaning that it'll switch on, and then when it switch off, it's linear, meaning that it stretches out the field still, because the magnetic induction is still induced in that field that's half of a tank circuit. Come on, Vinny. Vinny, say hi to everybody, and you got to move. I'm getting ready to fire this shit up. Don't want to get you going tonight. Come on, boo-boo. You got to move. Go. Let's go. Good boy.